The Winchester rifle bucked against Mordecai's shoulder as another painted warrior fell from his spotted pony. Smoke from burning cabins stung his eyes, mixing tears with soot as he watched his entire world collapse into ash and screams. His wife Delphine's voice had been silenced 10 minutes ago, cut short mid-prayer as she clutched their infant son Jasper to her breast. Now only the crackle of flames and distant war whoops filled the mountain air of their once peaceful settlement. Blood soaked through Mordecai's flannel shirt where a tomahawk had grazed his ribs. He stumbled through the charred remains of what had been Willowbrook. 37 souls who'd carved a life from this unforgiving Colorado wilderness, now reduced to bodies scattered like broken dolls among smoldering timber. The Cheyenne War party had struck at dawn, swift and merciless, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. His boots crunched over broken glass from the general store window as he searched desperately for survivors. Delphine, he called hoarsely, though he knew she couldn't answer. Jasper. The only response came from the wind whistling through bullet holes in the church bell tower. As afternoon shadows lengthened, Mordecai found himself the sole living soul in Willowbrook. He'd buried what remained of his family beneath the old oak where he'd first kissed Delphine, his hands raw and bleeding from clawing at the rocky soil with a broken shovel. 23 years old, and everything he'd ever loved lay 6 feet under. That's when he saw the giant. The Apache warrior sat motionless atop a painted Mustang at the ridge overlooking the destroyed settlement. Even from a distance, Mordecai could see the man's massive frame, easily 6.5 feet tall. With shoulders broad as a barn door, eagle feathers adorned his long black hair, and war paint streaked his bronzed face in patterns Mordecai didn't recognize. But there was something different about this one. He wasn't celebrating like the Cheyenne Raiders had been. He simply watched, statue still, as if bearing witness to the tragedy below. Mordecai's rifle trembled in his grip. He could take the shot. The Apache was well within range, silhouetted against the dying sun. One squeeze of the trigger would add another body to the day's carnage. But exhaustion had settled into his bones like winter frost, and revenge felt as hollow as the burned-out shells of houses around him. Instead, he set down his weapon and began walking up the slope. The Apache's dark eyes tracked his approach but showed no alarm. Up close, Mordecai could see intricate beadwork on the warrior's buckskin shirt and the carved bone handle of a massive knife at his belt. Scars crisscrossed his arms and chest, a lifetime of battles etched in flesh. Yet his face held no cruelty, only a deep sadness that seemed to mirror Mordecai's own. "I lost my family today," Mordecai said, his voice breaking like ice on spring rivers. "Can I spend a day with you, giant Apache?" The warrior studied him for a long moment, those obsidian eyes seeming to peer into Mordecai's very soul. When he finally spoke, his English was accented but clear, each word measured and deliberate. "You can stay forever, broken white man. I am Ayanna Nalnish, and I know the weight of such loss." Ayanna Nalnish, whose name meant eternal blossom. In his Apache tongue lifted Mordecai onto his Mustang without ceremony, as easily as hoisting a sack of grain. The horse barely shifted under their combined weight, testament to both the animal's strength and its rider's skill. As they rode away from the smoking ruins of Willowbrook, Mordecai felt the last threads connecting him to his former life snap like overstretched rope. They traveled south through pine forests and across rushing streams swollen with snowmelt. Ayanna Nalnish spoke little during their journey, but his actions revealed a gentle nature that contradicted his fearsome appearance. When Mordecai swayed with exhaustion, the Apache steadied him. When they stopped to water the horse, he shared jerky and pine nut cakes from his pack, pressing the food into Mordecai's reluctant hands. "Why?" Mordecai finally asked as they crested a rocky outcrop overlooking a hidden valley. "Why show kindness to a white man? Your people and mine have spilled enough blood to turn rivers red." Ayanna Nalnish reined in his horse and gazed across the valley where smoke rose from Apache lodges scattered among cottonwood trees. "3 seasons ago, blue soldiers came to my village while our warriors hunted buffalo. They killed my wife, Morning Star, and our daughter, Little Fox. Said we were hostiles for living on land they claimed belonged to their government." His massive hands tightened on the reins, I understand the hollow ache where your heart used to beat. The Apache camp received them with wariness. Warriors emerged from their wickiups with weapons ready, clearly displeased to see a white man in their midst. Angry voices rose in rapid Apache as heated arguments broke out. Mordecai caught enough of their gestures to understand many wanted him dead or driven away, but Ayana Nalnish stood firm, his commanding presence quieting the dissent. He spoke at length in his native tongue, his deep voice carrying across the camp. Gradually, the hostility faded to grudging acceptance. An elderly woman with silver-streaked hair approached and pressed a bowl of stew into Mordecai's hands. Her weathered face creased with sympathy. Grandmother Kosheta says grief makes brothers of all men, Ayana Nalnish translated. She lost her sons to the white soldiers' bullets. That night, as Mordecai lay on buffalo robes beside the fire, he found himself studying his unlikely savior. Ayana Nalnish sat cross-legged, working intricate patterns into a piece of leather with bone needles and sinew thread. His massive hands moved with surprising delicacy, creating beauty from raw materials, the same hands that could wield a war club with deadly precision. "What are you making?" Mordecai asked. "A medicine bag for my nephew. He becomes a man with." The next moon, Ayana Nalnish held up the leather, firelight dancing across the beadwork. "We honor life even as we mourn death. It is the Apache way." "I don't know how to honor anything anymore," Mordecai whispered. "I feel empty as a dried gourd. Emptiness can be filled, but first it must be felt completely. You cannot run from grief, white man. It will catch you like a wolf catches a lame elk." The truth of those words settled into Mordecai's chest like stones sinking in still water. For the first time since the attack, he allowed himself to truly feel the magnitude of his loss. Delphine's laugh would never again echo through their cabin. Jasper would never take his first steps or speak his first words. The future he'd planned teaching his son to read, watching Delphine's belly swell with more children. Growing old together on their mountain homestead, all of it had died with them. The sobs came then, racking his body like fever chills. Ayana Nalnish said nothing, but moved closer, his presence a solid anchor in Mordecai's storm of anguish. 3 weeks passed in the hidden valley, and Mordecai found himself drawn deeper into Apache life, despite the language barrier and cultural chasm. Ayana Nalnish proved an unexpectedly patient teacher, showing him how to track deer through mountain laurel, how to read weather patterns in cloud formations, and how to move through forest without disturbing so much as a twig. But it was the giant warrior's quiet wisdom that truly began healing Mordecai's shattered spirit. Each evening, as they sat by the fire sharing the day's hunt, Ayana Nalnish would speak of loss and recovery, of finding purpose beyond pain. "Apache believe the spirits of our loved ones never truly leave," he explained one night while grinding corn into meal. "They become part of the wind, the water, the growing things. When I see morning mist rise from the stream, I know morning star dances there. When little fox's favorite flower blooms, she laughs in its petals." Mordecai had been raised on stern Presbyterian doctrine, where the dead waited in distant heaven until Judgment Day. The Apache belief felt both foreign and oddly comforting. "How can you be certain? Because love is stronger than death, white brother. Your heart knows this truth even if your mind resists it." The name white brother had emerged gradually in their conversations, replacing Ayana Nalnish's initial broken white man. The change marked Mordecai's slow integration into camp life. Children who'd once hidden behind their mothers now approached shyly, giggling when he attempted their language. Young warriors included him in hunting parties, impressed by his skill. With the Winchester rifle, even the camp dogs accepted his presence, curling up beside him on cold nights. But it was grandmother Kosheta who provided Mordecai's most profound lesson. The old woman spoke no English, yet she seemed to understand his grief better than anyone. She would appear at his side during his darkest moments when nightmares jolted him awake, screaming Delphine's name when the weight of loss crushed down, like mountain avalanche. One morning, she led him to a secluded grove where Apache burial scaffolds stood among ancient pines. Through Ayana Nalnish's translation, she shared the story of each departed soul her warrior husband killed defending their people from Mexican slavers. Her 3 sons fallen to cholera brought by wagon trains, her daughter taken by cavalry. Soldiers and never seen again. She says grief shared is grief divided. Ayanna Nalnish interpreted as the old woman's gnarled hands traced symbols in the earth. And joy shared is joy multiplied. This is why Creator gives us others to walk beside. Mordecai knelt beside the symbol spirals representing the cycle of life and death, mountain peaks symbolizing eternal strength, and interconnected circles showing how all souls touched each other. Across time, for the first time since Willowbrook's destruction, he felt something stir in his chest beyond hollow ache. I want to learn your ways, he told Ayanna Nalnish that evening. Not to become Apache, I could never presume such a thing, but to understand how you carry loss without letting it destroy you. The giant warrior nodded solemnly. Learning begins with letting go of who you were, to discover who you might become. Are you ready for such a journey? White brother, Mordecai, thought of his burned cabin, his buried family, his shattered dreams. Then he looked around the Apache camp at grandmother Kosheta teaching children plant lore, at young couples courting beneath cottonwood trees, at Ayanna Nalnish himself, scarred but not broken by tragedy. I'm ready, he whispered, and meant it with every fiber of his being. The first real test of Mordecai's commitment came when cavalry patrol smoke appeared on the eastern ridge. Ayanna Nalnish spotted the distant dust cloud while returning from a successful elk hunt, his weathered face hardening as he counted the telltale signs. Roughly 20 mounted soldiers, moving in standard formation toward their hidden valley. Blue coats, he announced grimly to the gathered warriors. They follow our trail from the trading post. Mordecai's blood turned to ice water. He'd accompanied Ayanna Nalnish and 2 other braves to trade furs 3 days earlier, staying hidden while they dealt with the post owner. Someone must have seen him, recognized him as the Willowbrook survivor. Now he'd brought death to these people who'd shown him nothing but kindness. This is my fault, he said, reaching for his rifle. I'll lead them away. No. Ayanna Nalnish's massive hand closed over the weapon. Running confirms guilt. We face this together. The camp erupted in controlled activity. Women gathered children and elders, leading them to caves high in the canyon walls. Warriors checked weapons and took defensive positions among the rocks. But Mordecai noticed something that made his throat tighten. Several braves positioned themselves not to fight the soldiers, but to block any escape route he might take. They still don't trust me, he told Ayanna Nalnish. Trust is earned through fire, white brother. Today's flames will forge it or destroy it. When the cavalry patrol rode into the valley, their leader proved to be a hard-faced captain named Thornfield, his uniform crisp despite days in the saddle. His pale eyes swept the Apache camp with barely concealed disgust, before settling on Mordecai with surprise and growing anger. Well, Mordecai Fletcher, isn't it? Sole survivor of the Willowbrook massacre. Thornfield spat tobacco juice into the dust. Imagine my shock finding you playing house with these savages instead of seeking proper justice. These people saved my life, Mordecai replied carefully, aware that every word could mean life or death for the camp. They've shown me nothing but mercy. Thornfield laughed harshly. Boy, these are the same breed that butchered your family. How can you stomach breaking bread with them? The captain's words hit like physical blows, and Mordecai felt his carefully constructed peace begin to crumble. Part of him, the part still raw with grief, wanted to grab his rifle and start shooting. The Apache warriors around him were indeed the same people as those who'd destroyed Willowbrook. Their weapons could have taken Delphine's life, crushed Jasper's skull. But then he looked at Ayanna Nalnish standing calm and proud despite 20 rifle barrels aimed at his chest, at grandmother Kosheta peeking from behind a boulder, worry creasing her ancient features, at the young warriors whose jokes and camaraderie had slowly warmed his frozen heart. The Cheyenne destroyed Willowbrook, Mordecai said finally. These are Apache, and they're my friends. Captain Thornfield's face flushed red. Friends, you've gone native. Fletcher, lost your damn mind along with your family. He gestured to his men. We're taking you back to Fort Collins whether you like it or not. As for these hostiles harboring a white man against his will, I'm here by choice. Mordecai interrupted, stepping forward to stand beside Ayanna Nalnish. No one's holding me prisoner. The hell they're not. Sergeant Morrison. Arrest this man for desertion of his duties as a civilized Christian. The sergeant hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the order. Sir, he ain't a soldier. We got no legal authority. I'm making it legal. Thornfield snarled, drawing his sidearm. Fletcher, you're coming with us. These savages can rot. The click of hammers being cocked echoed through the valley as Apache warriors readied their weapons. Mordecai found himself caught between two worlds, two loyalties, two definitions of family and home. The choice he made in the next heartbeat would determine whether blood flowed in the hidden valley, and whose. He stepped forward, shielding Ayanna Nalnish with his own body. You want me, Captain? I'll come, but you'll have to kill me first to harm these people. The standoff stretched taut as a bowstring ready to snap. Captain Thornfield's revolver wavered between Mordecai and Ayanna Nalnish while Apache warriors drew their weapons. The air itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the first shot that would turn the hidden valley into a slaughter ground. Then Grandmother Kosheta emerged from behind her boulder. The ancient woman walked straight into the line of fire, her weathered hands empty, her step steady despite her age. She began to sing a haunting Apache death song that spoke of courage and sacrifice. Other women joined her voice, creating a harmony that seemed to rise from the earth itself. What the hell? Captain Thornfield started, but his words died as more figures appeared. Children, some barely old enough to walk, stepped from their hiding places and formed a protective circle around Mordecai and the warriors. They showed no fear, only the quiet dignity their elders had taught them. You want to kill Apache? Ayanna Nalnish asked quietly. Then you must shoot through our children first. Is this the white man's honor you speak of? Several soldiers lowered their rifles, their faces pale. Sergeant Morrison cleared his throat nervously. Captain, sir, maybe we should reconsider. Shut up, Morrison. Thornfield's voice cracked like a whip, but Mordecai could see uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Massacring women and children would be hard to explain in official reports even. On the frontier where Apache lives counted for little, the moment of indecision cost him dearly. A rifle shot cracked from the eastern ridge, not from the standoff below, but from hidden positions where Apache scouts had flanked the cavalry patrol. The bullet took Thornfield's hat clean off his head, and suddenly 24 painted warriors materialized from rocks and trees that had seemed empty moments before. Your move, Bluecoat, called Nate, Ayanna Nalnish's nephew, from his perch behind a boulder. His Winchester was trained on Thornfield's chest. You came hunting Apache, but the Apache were hunting you. The tactical situation had reversed completely. Instead of 20 soldiers facing a small camp, the cavalry found themselves surrounded by superior numbers with no escape route. Captain Thornfield's face cycled through several shades of red before settling on pale resignation. Stand down. Men, he ordered through gritted teeth. Holster your weapons. But the crisis was far from over. As tensions eased, Mordecai noticed blood seeping through Ayanna Nalnish's buckskin shirt. The giant warrior had been grazed by a nervous soldier's shot during the confrontation. Though he'd shown no sign of pain. You're hurt, Mordecai said, reaching toward the wound. It is nothing, Ayanna Nalnish replied, but his voice carried a slight tremor. The bullet had gouged a furrow along his ribs, not fatal, but requiring attention. Without hesitation, Mordecai tore strips from his own shirt to fashion a bandage. His hands worked swiftly, drawing on knowledge learned from doctoring injured livestock back in Willowbrook. The intimate act of tending his friend's wound while surrounded by hostile soldiers spoke louder than any words about where his loyalties lay. Captain Thornfield watched with disgust. Fletcher, you're making a mistake that'll haunt you. These people are marked for removal to reservation lands. Come winter, they'll be herded like cattle or killed like wolves. You really want to tie your fate to theirs? My fate was already tied to theirs the moment they showed me mercy, Mordecai replied, securing the bandage. Something your kind seems to have forgotten. My kind? Thornfield's hand drifted toward his holstered weapon. Boy, I fought in the war between the states. Lost my brother at Antietam. Don't lecture me about mercy when these savages scalp children. And white soldiers kill Apache children too, Ayanna Nalnish said calmly. Evil wears many faces. "Captain, but so does good." The philosophical debate might have continued, but Grandmother Kosheta intervened again. She approached Captain Thornfield with a small beaded pouch, offering it with words in Apache that Ayanna Nalnish translated. She says this contains medicine, herbs for nightmares. She sees the war sickness in your eyes, the ghosts that visit your sleep. Take it as a gift from one who has also lost much to violence. For a moment, Thornfield's hard mask slipped, revealing the haunted man beneath. His hand actually reached for the pouch before his military training reasserted control. Years passed. Children were born, including Ishkene and Desba's daughter, whom they named Delphini in honor of his first wife. The little girl grew up trilingual, speaking Apache English and Spanish with equal fluency. She became a bridge between worlds, just as her father had. Ayanna Nalnish aged into a respected elder, his counsel sought by both Apache and government officials. Grandmother Kosheta lived to see her great-great-grandchildren before passing peacefully in her sleep, her final words a blessing on the white man who'd become the truest Apache of all. And when Ishkene's own time came, decades later, he died, surrounded by children and grandchildren who carried his story forward, the tale of a man who lost everything and found something greater. His last words were in Apache, spoken to Ayanna Nalnish's ghost. "Thank you, my brother, for teaching me that home isn't a place. It's the people who choose to love you forever." The giant Apache warrior's promise had been kept. Ishkene had indeed stayed forever, not in the hidden valley that was lost, but in the hearts of a people who'd made him their own. In the end, that proved to be the only forever that truly mattered. "Keep your heathen trinkets, old woman." But his rejection lacked its earlier venom. The cavalry patrol departed that evening, riding east toward Fort Collins with threats and promises of return. But Mordecai barely noticed their leaving. His attention was focused entirely on the Apache camp, where he'd finally found his answer to Captain Thornfield's challenge. Yes, he would tie his fate to theirs. It was no longer a question of choice, but of recognition. These were his people now, chosen family forged in the crucible of shared loss and mutual protection. The wound fever took Ayanna Nalnish 3 days later, turning his massive frame into a furnace of heat and delirium. Despite Mordecai's careful bandaging and Grandmother Kocheta's herbal treatments, infection had set into the bullet graze. The giant warrior thrashed on his buffalo robes, speaking in rapid Apache to people only he could see, his skin burning. "To the touch, he walks between worlds now," Kosheta explained through gesture and broken English learned from traders. "His spirit seeks the path home to Creator." Mordecai refused to leave his friend's side. He bathed Ayanna Nalnish's fevered body with cool water from the mountain stream, forced drops of willow bark tea between his cracked lips, and whispered stories of their time together, hoping somehow his voice might anchor the warrior's wandering soul. On the third night, as Ayanna Nalnish's breathing grew shallow and irregular, Mordecai made a desperate decision. He'd heard the Apache speak of vision quests, sacred journeys where spirits communicated with the living, though he'd never attempted such a thing, and wasn't sure Creator would speak to a white man. He had to try. He climbed to the highest peak, overlooking the valley, where ancient petroglyphs covered the rock face like windows into the spirit world. There, with no food or water, he began his vigil. He prayed to the Christian God of his childhood, to the Apache Creator Ayanna Nalnish served, to any force in the universe that might listen to a desperate man's plea. "Take me instead," he whispered to the star-scattered sky. "Ayanna Nalnish has people who need him. I'm alone, broken. My life for his, it's a fair trade." The vision came near dawn, when exhaustion and grief had stripped away all pretense and civilization. Mordecai saw Delphini standing in a meadow of wildflowers, little Jasper toddling between. The colorful blooms, they looked peaceful, complete, no longer twisted by violence or marked by blood. "My darling," Delphini said, her voice carrying on wind that smelled of pine and promise. "You're not alone. You never were. I failed you both," Mordecai sobbed. "I should have protected you better. You did protect us," she replied, gathering Jasper into her arms. "You loved us completely while we lived. Now you must love others the same way." The giant warrior below, he needs your strength as you needed his mercy. But I miss you so much it feels like dying. Delphine smiled, the expression lighting her face like sunrise. Missing is remembering with love. We live in your heart, in your kindness to others, in every moment you choose healing over hatred. That is how spirits return to the world. The vision faded as true dawn painted the mountains gold and crimson. Mordecai stumbled down to the camp, his body weak, but his spirit somehow renewed. He found Ayanna Nalnish sitting up on his robes, the fever broken, drinking broth from a wooden bowl. "White brother," the warrior said, his voice hoarse but steady. "I dreamed of a golden-haired woman and a small child. They spoke your name with great love." Tears streamed down Mordecai's face. "They're at peace. We both are, now, grandmother." Kosheta approached with knowing eyes, pressing something into Mordecai's palm. It was a small piece of turquoise carved in the shape of a heart, warm from her ancient hands. "She says you have received a sacred vision," Ayanna Nalnish translated. "The spirits have accepted you as one of the people. You are no longer white. Brother, you are simply brother." The ceremony that evening marked Mordecai's formal adoption into the Apache clan. Warriors painted his face with sacred symbols. Women gifted him clothes of their own making, and children sang songs welcoming him home. But the moment that sealed his transformation came when Ayanna Nalnish stood before the gathered tribe and spoke in both Apache and English. "This man came to us broken by grief and empty of hope. We have filled that emptiness with love, and he has filled ours in return. From this day forward, he bears the name Ishkene, boy who found his way home." As the celebration continued deep into the night, Mordecai now Ishkene felt the last barriers around his heart crumble away. He was no longer the isolated homesteader who'd lost everything to violence. He was part of something larger, eternal, sacred. The Apache had given him not just a new name, but a new soul. 2 years later, Ishkene stood again on the ridge, overlooking the hidden valley, but this time he wasn't alone. Ayanna Nalnish's young cousin, Desba, worked beside him gathering late-season berries, her laughter echoing off the canyon walls like music. She'd become his wife in the Apache way 6 months earlier, their union blessed by the entire clan. "The soldiers come again," she said quietly, pointing to dust clouds on the eastern horizon. Grandmother Kosheta saw it in her dreams. Ishkene felt the familiar tightness in his chest. But this time, it wasn't panic, it was protective resolve. The valley below held everything precious to him now. Ayanna Nalnish trained young warriors in the old ways. Grandmother Kosheta taught children the healing arts. Families went about their daily lives with the quiet dignity that had first drawn him to these people. "How many soldiers?" he asked, more than before. "They bring wagons, chains. The reservation orders have come." The dreaded moment had arrived. For months, rumors had circulated about government plans to relocate all Apache bands to distant reservation lands, barren places where proud warriors would become dependent on government rations, where children would be forbidden to speak their native tongue, where the ancient connection between people and land would be severed forever. "We could run," Desba suggested. "Cross into Mexico, join the free bands in the Sierra Madre." Ishkene considered this. Many Apache had chosen that path, preferring exile to surrender. But as he looked down at the valley, at fields where corn grew tall, at wickiups arranged around the sacred council fire, at the burial grounds where so many generations rested, he knew running wasn't the answer. "This is home," he said simply. "Whatever comes, we face it here." The cavalry column that entered the valley 3 days later was indeed larger than Captain Thornfield's previous patrol, nearly 100 soldiers, led by a colonel named Whitman. But something had changed in the intervening years. Instead of the aggressive posture of armed invasion, this felt more like a reluctant duty being performed by weary men. Colonel Whitman proved to be cut from different cloth than the brutal Thornfield. When he met with the Apache leadership, he spoke with grudging respect rather than contempt. His weathered face showed the strain of a career spent enforcing policies he'd grown to question. "I won't lie to you," he told the gathered clan through an interpreter. "Washington wants all Apache on the San Carlos Reservation. I have orders to bring you in by force if necessary. But I've seen what happens when proud people are caged like animals. It never ends well for anyone. Ayana Nalnish spoke for his people with the quiet authority that had made him their unofficial leader. We have lived in peace these past seasons. We trade fairly, harm no settlers, ask only to remain on the land of our fathers. I know that. Whitman replied, your reputation has reached even Washington. But policy is policy, regardless of individual merit. The negotiations continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Apache would be relocated to San Carlos within the month. Resistance would mean bloodshed, and though they could likely win any immediate battle, the army would return in greater numbers until the valley ran red. That night, as the clan wrestled with their impossible choice, Ishkane made his own decision. He found Colonel Whitman sitting alone by the army's campfire, writing what appeared to be an official report. Colonel, I'd like to propose something. Whitman looked up, studying the white man who'd become Apache with undisguised curiosity. You're Fletcher, aren't you? The Willowbrook survivor. I heard about your transformation. I'm Ishkane now, and I want to offer myself as translator and liaison for the relocation. Someone who understands both worlds might help ease the transition. That's unusual. You'd voluntarily go to San Carlos. My family is going. Where they go, I go. Whitman set down his pen, real interest flickering in his tired eyes. You could stay here. You know, resume your white identity, file a homestead, claim on this valley once the Apache are gone. Start over. Ishkane shook his head. I already started over, Colonel. 2 years ago, when a giant Apache warrior told a broken man he could stay forever. That's exactly what I intend to do. The journey to San Carlos took 3 weeks, but it wasn't the death march many had feared. Colonel Whitman's respectful treatment of the Apache, combined with Ishkane's translation skills, prevented the worst abuses. When they finally reached the reservation, Ishkane helped establish their camp near other relocated Apache bands, using his unique position to advocate for better conditions and fair treatment.